I'm happy to be here at GeeCON this year. Welcome to this talk. It's called The Final Frontier of Web Development. And I titled it React Server Components versus Jakarta. So, and this is sort of a new field for me. So you probably know more about this than I do, but let's see how it goes. So my name is Ivar Grimstad. I'm the Jakarta developer advocate at Eclipse Foundation. These are my social media coordinates, so if you want to connect with me, you can do so during or after the talk. I put the Norwegian flag up there because today is the National Day of Norway, and I'm from Norway, so I'm just celebrating a little. And before I get started, you probably know this, but if you scan this QR code here, you can ask questions, and I'll see if I go in there during the talk or at the end. But this is where you take up your phone and scan this code if you aren't already there. Okay? So, then, why am I here? What am I doing? I don't know nothing about React, and let's see how it goes. And I also questioned myself why this talk, and at the latest time I questioned this talk was this morning when I was starting to prepare it. But I'm not doing it to compare anything or anything, but I've noticed on the internet, on the various channels here and there, that server-side rendering is sort of hot again. And the key here is again, because this is something we've seen before, and it's kind of interesting to follow what's going on in these various frameworks around there. And I'm not going to do anything like put up a war between this and that technology, or do any of these hard comparisons and say this is better than this or that is better than this. So I'm just going to show, yeah, we've seen it before, and you can use this or you can use this. And I also have to say that I don't know much about this, but it's going to be fun. So obviously this is about JavaScript and it's about Java, but it's not about choosing one or the other. You can combine them or anything, but it will be a little bit of comparisons around there. So if you look at JavaScript, it started out as a client-side stuff. Right? We did it in the browser, and fairly quickly, or after a while, it started also to appear on the server with Node.js and all these frameworks that pop up every day. So JavaScript is kind of both on the client side and on the server side. But did you know that also that Java started out on the client? So Java was initially created to run in the browser. That was it was created to run on devices. So it was kind of a surprise, I think, to the creators of Java how it conquered the server side and kind of won over everything there. So everything, after a while, was running on server-side Java with J2EE at the time. That's kind of what's powering all the financial institutions and banks and everything around there. It took over all the COBOL thing. So Java also is, as JavaScript, is both client-side and server-side. Client-side, a little bit less for Java these days, but still you will find desktop Java applications out there. But it's usually, when you think about Java, you think about server-side code. With JavaScript, it's kind of everywhere. And I'm not going to say anything about the Java or JavaScript. They're both there to coexist. Another thing about this title is I call it the final frontier. And if there is one thing that is certain, it's that it's not final, because this is something that will evolve and go around in circles maybe. And this is kind of what I'm seeing, is that we're inventing the same things over and over and over again. And that's what's interesting to see in the social media now, that server components were, I think I first noticed it, some tweet and so React server components. And I said, oh, I've seen this before somewhere. And this is what we do with all kinds of technologies. We're inventing it over and over again. You see, EJBs were popular, then Kubernetes was a thing, and now we're starting to think about these EJBs again. And the same thing with these server-side rendering. that was something we did in late '99, you know. And now 20 or 25 years later, it's becoming hot again. It's kind of all sorts of technologies we have. Is that we go in these circles and reinvent the things with just a different stack of technologies. But what I'm focusing this a little bit on is on web development then. And there we have a versus. So you have the client-side scripting or the server-side scripting. Where do you render your pages? And that's kind of, you can mix and match there as well. But this is where, for quite a few years, client-side rendering has been the de facto standard. That you put everything in the JavaScript, throw it to the browser, and let that render all the UI for you. But the trend now is that more and more it's coming back to the server side and render it there. So if we look at some client-side rendering then. So you have a browser and you have a server. So if you have a user clicking something in the browser, it sends a request to the server, it generates or pulls together, bundles some JavaScript and resources, sends it back to the browser, and it can take a little while, but it gets there, and then when the user clicks again, it just invokes the JavaScript, and maybe it sends something back in for the server, but for the UI itself, it's just happening in the browser. So that's kind of the traditional client-side way of doing it. So if you do the same example, but using server-side rendering, you still have the browser and the server, and you have the user clicking the browser, doing a request to the server, generating some HTML, and sending it back to the browser. And what happens now if your user clicks again? Right? Then you'll do the same thing over and over again. So the first initial click may be faster, but for every thing you do, you go a round trip to the server and render the HTML again. And there are some advantages of doing this. And that is what people are sort of discovering now and moving back to looking at different technologies to do it on the server. And one of those are performance. And because if you generate the HTML on the server, you have much more computing power on the server, and especially if you're using small devices like maybe not on a MacBook with a browser and lots of stuff you can run the JavaScript in the server, but if you have a small device, it can be more performance to actually render that page for you on the server side. And one of those performance things is definitely about the initial page load, the first time you click on that page. So if you have that first click, the user clicks on it, it goes down, and this JavaScript file may be fairly heavy. It may be fairly big. So it may take some time, some network time to get that JavaScript up to the server. So that's where an advantage of server-side rendering, where you send less back on the first request. So you don't have these. You've probably all seen, you click on a booking system for an airline or something, and the browser goes black, and it stays black for a second or two before it shows something. And that's where all the first JavaScript and resources are loaded up to the server before it starts rendering. Also, caching can be advantaged to do on the server. So if you do the click here, you can generate that HTML file, and that can be cached on the server. So when a new user does it, that will go much faster. So because it's already generated, you don't have to render it again. So caching on the server can be done more efficient with rendering on the server. And also, if you're doing data fetching, so if you do a lot of catching data from your database or data sources or whatever you store, file system or wherever you store your data, doing it closer to where you do the rendering can be faster, because it's not only, not necessarily just one round trip to the database, you may do several calls, and the more you can do on the server before you return the page, it will be faster. And then we have security. So if you do it on the client side, you would typically store or in some way have API keys, data logic available in the client browser. It may be obfuscated and may be encrypted or everything, but it's not in your control. So it's out there at somebody else's computer. And by keeping that stuff on the server, makes it more secure. There's also advantages for search engine optimization or SEO. It's easier for the server to render. If you have static rendered pages rendered from the server, it's easier for them to go through them because the bots doing this SEO doesn't have to know JavaScript and execute it to see the page. It just sees the HTML. So let's talk a little bit about Jakarta before we go into some demos. So who here are JavaScript developers and don't know anything about Java, or are you a JavaScript developer? Yeah. So anybody heard of or using Jakarta? Yeah, a couple. Yeah. So Jakarta is all about specifications and standards. So it's a standard for server-side Java, and these specifications have a document where it's described. It has an API artifact that is in Maven Central that we as developers are using. And it has a test compatibility kit, or TCK, that we use to verify that an implementation fulfills the specification. And we need at least one open source implementation to ratify a final specification. So we have proven that it's actually implementable. An example of this is, for example, Hibernate, if you're using that for ORM data. That's a implementation of the Jakarta persistence specification. So that's kind of how they're connected. You can look at Tomcat, for example. That's an implementation of the Jakarta servlet specification. And there are many specifications. Jakarta E10 is the latest version out there. And Jakarta 10 consists of all these specifications. So I mentioned a couple of them, like servlets and persistence. But you also see we have web technologies there, like WebSocket, server pages or JSPs, faces, etc. Jakarta 11 is coming in July. So these are just essentially the same specifications. There's one new Jakarta data that makes it easier to retrieve data from data sources. It's kind of a layer on top of persistence. And otherwise, it's updates to all the blue ones are updated for Jakarta 11. So it's coming in July. This is the entire platform. We also have a subset of these called the web profile. That is more the web UI versions of the specifications. So it's a subset of the platform that makes the runtimes a little smaller. And we have an even smaller version of it called the core profile that is targeting REST services or microservices, if you like. So this is the Jakarta core profile. It was introduced in Jakarta 10. So it's fairly new. Web profile has been around since Java E6, and that was around 2008, I think, or even before. So I've highlighted a couple of those blinking specifications. Those are the ones that are directly related to web development and server-side rendering. So we'll look at some of those in the rest of this talk. So let's start with pages or JSPs. Anybody heard of or using JSPs? Yeah. Okay, a lot. Good. Yeah, it's been around for a very long time, and one thing that kind of has sort of comparable to JSPs is a node technology called EJS, and I know that's sort of on the way out, being replaced by other frameworks, I think. but still, it's a templating or view technology out there. So let's look at that and see how it compares to JSPs, and it's sort of interesting. So here is a super simple Node app using the EJS. So it just has this simple page saying greetings with this tag syntax here. So it just says if it's true, it's going to display this one. So it executes some code in the template. So if I run this one, let's see if I can remember how I run this. So it should be the EJS Duke, and this should be is it Node app JS? Yeah. So it started. So I should be able to go to localhost and see on 8080, I think it goes. So it says greetings from GeeCON. So if I change this to false, this is on the server. It will now render to not showing it. So it executes this while it renders this page on the server side. So the alternative to this is sort of using JSPs. So if you look at a simple JSP application, so the only thing this one has is a index page, and I have this web XML saying show this page, and it has this index thing. And what's interesting here is to see that this thing is exactly the same as this thing. So it's exactly the same way of writing it. It doesn't have any significant more boilerplate code around it. It just happens to run on a Jakarta EE server. So if I want to run this one, let's take the Glassfish 7. I'll just start this. So I have all the demo. Oh, I have to close the Node server. Let me see. So just stop this. There, go to there. I had a port conflict, so let's just get rid of this and go to the Glassfish again and start it. So it starts up fairly okay here. So you see it. I'll just redeploy it so we're sure we're running on the latest version. And now if I go to localhost 8080 and go to the JSP dict, it should render the same thing. And the same here is if I now say don't render this, and I'll have to refresh it. Now it doesn't. So it's exactly the same code as the Node server did. So this is very interchangeable. If you look at the code, this is the EJS example, and this is the JSP example. So it's just the page directory on the top that has changed. So JSP is I can't remember when they came, but I think that was 99. And EJS, well, it seems like it's not continued anymore, but that came in Node, and Node came significantly later. So that's kind of the wheel technology is coming back again. And if you want to learn more about JSPs, today they're not called JSPs. We don't use the acronyms any longer, so we call them Jakarta pages. So you have to search for Jakarta page. You still get hits for JSPs, but it's on Jakarta/specification pages. And it's version 4.0 is the current version, 4.1 is the version coming in Jakarta 11. So let's look at servlets. And to compare servlet, we're going to look at React. And if we look at this is kind of the client-side way, the traditional, when React came, this is I think this is the way you used to do this stuff. Like just put everything in a JavaScript, wrap it together and send it to the client and execute it. So you want to kind of do this on the server rather than this. And React server components was kind of mentioned a year or so, or even more ago, but I don't think it is any final version yet, if I'm not wrong there. So what you typically would use to create React server components is Next.js, I think. And Next.js is probably very nice stuff built on React or very similar to it. So let's look at servlets and Next.js and compare them. So I have this React Duke application where I have also just an indexed page that returns the hello world. So it does this on the server and just returns the HTML up to the server. So if I want to run this one, I think this one runs on a different port, so I can do that without React Duke. And this one is npm, I think. How do you remember all this stuff? npm run dev. So it's on port 3000. So then I can go to localhost 3000 and look at this. So yeah, it renders hello world. If I change it, it will be something different that is rendered. So it's there. It works fine. So if I wanted to do this with a plain old servlet, I have the same application. The only thing I have here is I have an index page, so I can have a nice UI in the beginning, but otherwise it's just a servlet, and it's a little bit more boilerplate code in this where I have this. It maps to a URL path, and then I have a method that corresponds to the HTTP method. So this is a get method. So then it's a do get method I have to override. And in this one I can do a response get writer and print line the hello world example like this. So it's very similar to what you would do here, return the HTML. So it's practically the same thing I would do. And if I go in and execute this one is actually running on I did this in Glassfish 8, so I wanted to show the latest version there. That's actually using servlet 6.1, so it's a milestone of Jakarta 11. So if I look at this one, localhost 8080 servlet dick. So here I have this hello endpoint, and it shows a hello world. So it's very similar to what you would do with the Next.js stuff. I mean, it's probably here in the advantage for me as a Java developer is that this is Java code, so I can call my business logic and do my business methods, and then render the page. If you're a JavaScript developers, then it probably makes more sense to do your stuff in the React example. So here you would call functions down to the JavaScript libraries you're using. So okay, I'll just stop this one. So a typical where we return a message, and here you can call in and do stuff and add to that HTML file rendered on the server from a Next.js application. In a servlet, you would do it within the Java code. There's a little bit more of this boilerplate stuff around it, but the logic would be the same. It's just a different language. And servlet you can find here. So let's look at phases. And phases is actually something that is pretty cool. And the stuff out there now that I think compares most directly to phases is HTMX. Anybody using HTMX? Heard of it? Huh? So it looks pretty cool. out there. I didn't have time to actually find some good code examples for it, but what I do have is a library here with examples, so you can sort of look at this. And for example, the one I had showed here was the file upload. So that is typically a component you would create in a web application where you upload stuff. So here you can just more or less copy this into your HTML files, and probably it would, if you set it up correctly, it would just work with the library there. What's interesting is that Faces has the same thing, and this is Prime Faces, which is a technology that is built on Faces. So here also you have this file upload, the basic version, and here also you can just take the stuff and paste it into your template, and they also have an example for how you can do the backend code where you actually do stuff with these files as well. So if I'm going to demo some facelets, I'm just going to restart this one, and we can go in and look at this Faces code. And this one also, all of these are similar in the configuration. So I'm using, in this case, Java 17. I'm using GlassFish 7 and the previous version of Jakarta. Then I have the Jakarta 10. If I were on 11, I could use 21 or 22 here. And in this case, I've added the Prime Faces dependency since I'm using that library. Apart from that, it's just the compiler. And in this one, I haven't added any code other than I have this web saying that it's facelets, that the facelet servlets should be activated, and then I can do these index XHTML. It's not HTMX, it's XHTML. So, and if I wanted to add, for example, the file upload thing here, I would typically just take this one and copy this in and just run it. I can try this now. I haven't really tried it before, but if I paste this like this, it may fail since I don't have any backend stuff. So we may want to take away the backend things. But you see, it supports Ajax, and that is one of the things. HTMX is sort of, I saw a tweet last week, we support Ajax and WebSockets and something else. And this has been in Facelets since 2009, the Ajax stuff. So I'll just remove the backend things and see if this one works. Otherwise, I'll demo something else. Let's see here. Localhost 8080 Faces Duck. Let's see. Okay, it didn't work. So let's forget this one, and I'll show you another cool component, and that is the Prime Faces editor. So I'm gonna just add it here. So what I do is I add the Prime Faces. That's this namespace here. Text editor, and just say, give it a couple of default attributes, and then I reload the page, and what I get here is a full-fledged editor that I can use here to write stuff in with different fonts and text. So this is how easy you can add a fairly advanced component with Faces, with all these stuff, and use it in your business application. And the same as HTMX has all these different things. You can lazy load, validate, progress bars, and stuff. You can also look at the Prime Faces showcase here, that they have a vast library of things you can put in here for your applications, that you can just more or less drag and drop components that are redundant on the server, as HTML in your browser, and you get examples for how to do the Java backend code as well. Yeah, this is how you use the Prime Faces editor. So Faces, you can find more about there. This also has changed the name. It used to be JSF, but now it's Jakarta Faces. So you can still search for JSF, but if you can't find the latest versions, it's Faces to search for. Let's look at a technology that is not a part of the platform per se right now. It is a prospective specification for future platforms, and it's called MVC, and it's a very flexible way of creating server-side rendered UIs. And I think with this trend going towards server-side rendering, I think MVC will gain popularity. We created this one back in 2014, when there was still some server-side rendering out there, but then it was deemed, okay, everybody's doing JavaScript on the server now, so we don't need this right now. But so that was when Oracle was doing the Java EE platform, and after it was, Oracle said we're not including it in Java E8. The community took it over, so we finished that specification as a standalone specification, and we donated it, or we followed over to Eclipse Foundation when we created Jakarta EE. So it's there as a standalone specification at version 3.0 now, so it's fairly mature, and we're hoping to get it into Jakarta EE 12. But you can still use it. It's part of Glassfish, and I know Wildfly is including it in their distribution as well. So it is there. It's fairly useful, and it's very flexible when it comes to view engines. So maybe MVC will be the winner here, if it's a competition. So if we look at MVC, I actually have a slider. So the way MVC works is it is on top of Jakarta REST. So it's like you would create a RESTful endpoint, but adding the @controller annotation makes it behave a little differently. Rather than returning the response as like a text that is a JSON or XML or something else, it will return and render a view. And in this example, it renders a JSP. The implementation, JSP is the only one we require for the specification. But the implementation we have, I think there are 12 different view engines that we ship with it, and we have some extensions to it going further as well. And as I'll show later, it's very easy to add a new view engine if you want to use something else. We support Thymeleaf and AsciiDoc and whatnot, but JSP is the default one. So that's one I'll show here. So with MVC, it's still a Jakarta 10 application. Here I'm using version 2.1 since 3.0 is the one we will release after Jakarta 11. And this one doesn't have any other configuration since it runs on Glassfish that already has it included. And the code here is, I have this controller that I showed you. This is the @controller. I say the path should be @hello, and it's a @get request. It's the same annotation that we use for a Jakarta REST application. It's just the MVC controller that is different. In this case, I use the @view annotation to do the JSP. I could also return the string being the path to that view. But in this case, I just use the @view annotation. And it has the configuration is pure Jakarta REST. It's just, you have to extend this application and set the application path, and that's it. So and it has, the actual view is by default in the webinf views folder, where I have this view file. So if I execute this one, let's go to localhost 8080 MVC Duke and hello. there, it shows the text that comes from the view. But usually you have some sort of business logic somewhere. So if I wanted to for example use the default model, we ship it with a default model. You can use any CDI class, but we ship it with a models class. So if I wanted to inject here, I can do it privately even models model. So if I inject the models as my model here, since it's a model view controller at MVC. So the view is the JSP, the controller is here, and the model is the data, or coming from somewhere in your application. So what I can do here is to write model, put, and then I can add something. This is basically an extension of a map. So if you say name and Duke. So I populated the model with Duke's name, and then I can access it here. Maybe I want to have a H2 to make it big, and I can just access it with the dollar and name. Because that's the model, right? So when I do this, redeploys it, and now it should say Duke. So this is how you can write everything in Java and render with any view technology you want. I chose JSPs here. An interesting thought is, how cool would it be if we used HTMX as a view engine? Would that be useful, right? Would it even work? It's just an experiment. And the way you would typically do that is to create a HTMX view engine, or call it whatever you want, and implement the MVC view engine interface that has two methods. It has the supports and the process view. And the supports could be as simple as just checking what's the file ending of that view string you send in there. If it's the HTMX or whatever they use as file endings, then go for it. And then you have to have the process view where you call whatever they do. So that combination could be, it doesn't even need to be this. If it's just pure HTML and you add some JavaScript stuff, it probably works out of the box as today, but then you can write your code in Java and using powerful UI components and render it on the server and get it out. So it's an interesting future for MVC, the way I see it. So to sum up a little, server-side rendering is coming, if it's not already here. If you look at some of these technologies, it's not a versus, it's kind of comparable over. Next.js could compare to a servlet. You can probably compare to multiple of these. HTMX compares fairly well to what offered by Faces, Node.js to Pages, and etc. And all of these are sort of, yeah, I guess you could put an arrow between all of them. And MVC is there, sort of. We can render facelets and use the Faces servlet as well. It combines with MVC, so you can use Faces with MVC as well. So that is probably a Jakarta technology I would pay a little attention to if I were a web UI developer these days. And I haven't even mentioned Vaadin. Anybody using Vaadin? Not anymore, no. So Vaadin is out there. It's pretty cool stuff. It's all Java and server-side rendered, and it's fairly cool. So that is also something that it's not affiliated with Jakarta at all, but it works very well in combination with it. So it is there. So the Jakarta 10 platform is out there. Some of these specifications are more interesting for web development than others, like WebSockets, Pages, Faces, Servlet, and obviously MVC, which is not part of the platform. 11 is coming in July, just a couple of months out. And the theme for 11 will be Java 21 records We have this new Jakarta data specification. It's CDI-centric, and we're deprecating and removal a lot of old stuff, so it's thinner and leaner than ever. And I hope this talk has shown you that even though something is flashy, brand new, and sounds like something that just came today, it's probably been there before. And we've seen it happening a while back. And most of these server-side rendering, server components, all these frameworks and stuff translates into the existing technologies that has been around for a while and still powers a lot of the world and still worth looking at, and maybe now even more than before. If you want to learn more about Jakarta EE, you can go to jakarta.ee. If you want to just test it out, get started with it, you can go to start.jakarta.ee. We have this initializer or starter where you can just select a couple of drop-downs and generate a zip file and unzip it and run it. You can read about Jakarta EE even in my weekly blog post. And the demo code for this is on the Duke server components repository on my GitHub. So I'll publish the slides afterwards, so you can find them there. If you really want to learn about Jakarta EE, you can go to LinkedIn Learning or scan this QR code and do the Jakarta EE overview course and get a nice certification on your LinkedIn profile. If you're connecting with me on LinkedIn, I'll send you a free link. Just tell me you saw my talk here. If you want to help us pave the future for Jakarta EE, like say, I want MVC in next version, do take the Jakarta EE developer survey. It closes in the end of May, so you have still have a couple of weeks to do this. But it takes a couple of minutes, and we would be very grateful if you do so. So let's look at the Slido, if I can find that. There we go. All right, Jakarta EE looks like Java EE in 10K with a new name. Why a new product should consider Jakarta EE over Spring Boot and non-JVM stuff. All right, so yes, Jakarta EE is Java EE in a new name, but developed further. So Java EE was Oracle's thing. Oracle donated it or transferred it to Eclipse Foundation, where it's been developed further. So under Eclipse Foundation, the name had to change to Jakarta EE because Java is owned by Oracle. So it's a new name. It looks like Java EE, but it's newer, faster, better. Why should you use Jakarta EE over Spring Boot or other stuff? My answer to that is, for me personally, I'm more productive with Jakarta EE. It's less verbose. Spring Boot is very easy to get started with, but complex to finish a project with. But Jakarta EE is kind of the same all the way. It's a standard that has been around since late 90s. It's more than 25 years old. It's proven. It works. It's something that powers the world. So if you want to have the flexibility of choosing different vendors and how to do stuff, Jakarta EE is definitely a way to look at. And it works well in container environments, for example, as well. And if you stick to the slim or smaller runtimes like Helidon, that only implements the core profile. That core profile has removed the dynamic runtime things that CDI does and resolves it at build time, so you can compile to native and use GraalVM if you want to. So it can be small and it can be big. All right. Any other questions? You can ask them here as well. So I have a couple of socks here. Whoever asked the question, come here, you've earned a pair of socks. Others, just find me afterwards and ask if you can have a pair of socks and have a conversation. So thank you very much for listening, and I've enjoyed being here, and hope you enjoyed it.